Hello and how's it going, everyone? It is Skullzi here with the latest gaming news, rumors, and speculation. It seems like Bethesda is totally cool with leaving us just floating out there in the void of space without any new recent Starfield updates or information. However, fear not, as we have yet another very interesting interview from an ex-Bethesda Game Studios developer, and in this very interview we definitely get some new Starfield information, and a bit of insight into that previous trailer for the Elder Scrolls 6 as well, so we have a lot of decent stuff to break down in today's video. Let's not waste any more time and get straight into today's content. First off, like the last interview I broke down here in the channel, this new one comes to us from Nate Perkypile once again. Nate left Bethesda back in April of 2021 in order to start his own indie game dev studio named Just Perky Games. He has been at Bethesda for over 17 years though, working on several games ranging from Fallout 3, Fallout 4, Skyrim, Fallout 76, Todd Howard's Super Awesome Adventure Time, and of course, Starfield. So he definitely has a lot of credibility if he says anything at all about Starfield. If he says something, it's probably legit and most likely will be in the game. And in a recent interview that took place on October 8th, a couple days from the time that I uploaded this video, Nate did exactly that thing. He gave us some more insight into Starfield and mentioned some unique things that haven't been brought up through the official Bethesda news channels. This interview is all thanks to PC Gamer, and as always, the link will be down in the description below. Naturally, I'll be skipping over a lot of this interview, but I'll be breaking down every individual piece of information regarding Bethesda, Starfield, and even a little bit about the Elder Scrolls 6 as well. This interview starts off with Nate touching on the size of Starfield, and all of the unique challenges and difficulties Bethesda faced while building Starfield's world, universe, and lore. First, Starfield does indeed have the biggest playable game world from Bethesda Game Studios yet, and contrary to some of the counterpoints in the community, no, this game size is not bloated up by vast empty voids of space or barren planets. This is playable area, divided amongst all the various settlements, moons, planets, ships, and space stations, and while there will no doubt be a high amount of empty spaces on barren planets or other areas, for the most part I'd say it's safe to assume that in terms of interesting playable areas with content, Starfield will have the biggest game size we've seen yet in terms of not only the map, but also game systems. Nate then mentions that Bethesda Game Studios has the most developers it's ever had in its entire history at this point in time, and that Starfield in turn will have the highest amount of devs working on it than any other previous Bethesda project. For example, Fallout 76 had about 200 developers working on it during its peak development period. Starfield has over 500 people. This not only puts into perspective the sheer amount of new content and playable space that Starfield will offer, but at the same time shows us that the game will also have the highest amount of quality assurance testing as well. As it's also been discovered recently and throughout the last couple of years, Bethesda has been expanding their internal QA team on a large scale, and they also have access to Microsoft staff and resources now. Well, I'm definitely not saying that Starfield will launch bug-free, because I'm almost certain it won't. I am stating that the chances of it doing so are just significantly higher than they've ever been before. This additional Bethesda staff was extremely necessary though, as Nate further states that some of the major challenges Bethesda faced while creating this new massive game world were unique to Starfield upon itself. Nate states that not only did Bethesda have to create all of these cities, planets, stories, factions, and lore, they had to do a lot of research along the way in order to make the game world look as good as it could be and be as immersive and accurate as possible. One example of this is researching what a heavy metal planet would look like. What shapes would it be? What colors would it feature? How would the terrain look like? How would the gravity be? What potential resources would it have? And then further still, how would this futuristic spacefaring universe view and utilize such a planet? Replace a heavy metal planet with just about any realistic planetary variation that you can think of, and it immediately becomes quite clear just how much work actually goes into making a believable, huge, open-world, space sci-fi universe, all from scratch. The journey Starfield undergoes from being a spark in the mind of Todd Howard to a full living game world is a documentary I would definitely be interested in watching. Further still, the vast backdrop that is space would no doubt offer planets that look virtually the same and are, for the most part, quite barren. This too is a particular challenge Bethesda had to face and overcome while developing Starfield, attempting to make each area, biome, planet, moon, etc. look unique and interesting while at the same time offering unique and interesting content to prevent repetitiveness and make the players still want to go out and explore more is definitely a challenge upon itself. I will note though that it's a good thing that Bethesda seems aware of this particular situation and they're taking steps to overcome this. This definitely makes me more excited to explore the cosmos within Starfield, as Nate states that there is simply so much to explore and discover within this game, from the planets to the mysteries of space to Starfield's lore itself and beyond. Next, Nate touches on the map of Starfield. While we already knew the game featured over 1,000 planets, here we can see the game will have over 100 solar systems. While no doubt we could have assumed this would be the case, I don't think I've seen a quantitative variable assigned to how many solar systems there would be yet, so I felt like it was interesting enough to mention it here real quick as well. And when it comes to how Bethesda managed to create all these worlds, Nate can confirm some procedural generation was indeed used, but he doesn't want to go into the exact details of that, probably because he doesn't want to break NDA here. One thing many don't realize, though, is a decent amount of procedural generation has been used in creating almost every single previous Bethesda Game Studios open world, from Fallout 76 to Skyrim to Fallout 3, and definitely even earlier than that. Bethesda's are masters at blending procedurally generated content with handcrafted content, and they've basically done so since Bethesda Game Studios has existed, and Starfield will no doubt be more of the same. The space backdrop of Starfield, though, might allow the procedurally generated content to stand out a bit more here, though, but I'm still interested in seeing how Bethesda tries to solve this problem. Nate did state that only a small fraction of the team are actually working on planets, though, which I found pretty interesting and signifies that there might be a lot more procedural generation than we've seen from Bethesda before, which no doubt makes sense as this is a space universe. Finally, Nate gives us his thoughts on The Elder Scrolls 6. For some reason, the Elder Scrolls 6 trailer from years ago is suddenly trending again, and several news articles are suddenly talking about how disappointed the community is that we were apparently ghosted by Bethesda via this TES 6 teaser trailer from years ago back in 2018. Well, why this is trending now all of a sudden is definitely a mystery within itself, one likely solved by the explanation of clickbait in an otherwise dry Bethesda news world. Nate does indeed give us his thoughts on whether or not he thinks Bethesda is running behind with the Elder Scrolls 6 and if he thinks the community should feel ghosted. He basically states the same exact thing that Bethesda did back when they dropped the TES 6 trailer years ago, that it was meant to just serve as more of a reminder to the community that Bethesda hasn't forgotten about the Elder Scrolls, and that the Elder Scrolls Online wasn't going to ultimately ever replace the single-player games. They even stated that TES 6 would release after Starfield, yet here we are seeing headlines about how people apparently think Bethesda is ghosting them after this trailer. While Nate definitely doesn't agree that anyone is being ghosted, he does agree that the Elder Scrolls Online shouldn't serve as a stand-in for the single-player games. Although ESO is great, there is still a definite divide in the Elder Scrolls community relating to who prefers online games and those who never even play online games in the first place. So all in all, this is the same exact conversation we've been seeing popping up basically every year since the E3 June 2018 Elder Scrolls 6 trailer, and I kinda doubt it'll be the last time either. And then to finish up today's video, we have yet another interesting community discovery. This is separate from the Nate Perkypile interview, and this is actually something the community has discovered within the last week or so. This comes to us from people in the community stalking Bethesda employee LinkedIn profiles. They discovered this. One of the graphics programmers over at Bethesda Game Studios Montreal listed within their LinkedIn experience section that they worked on the lighting for Starfield, and that Starfield's lighting would no doubt feature RTX integration. It's been long assumed that Starfield would feature ray tracing, but this new discovery basically confirms that Bethesda is at least working on it. We'll have to wait for Bethesda themselves to confirm this though, because like most pre-release discoveries, any of this is subject to change at any point within Starfield's development process. That's going to finish up today's video though. As always, let me know what you think about all this down in the comments below. Be sure to like the video as it helps the algorithm push the content to new people, and as always, be sure to subscribe and give the notification bell some skooma so you can stay in the know when it comes to the latest news. And finally, if you want a permanent future video shout out at the end of every single one of my future videos, consider supporting the channel over on Ko-fi, Patreon, or here on YouTube as an exclusive channel member. Links for all this and more are down in the description below, and as always, thank you for watching. Be sure to tune in next time when we're one day closer to this new epic adventure.
It just works.